buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, your time to extend the love you guys share with me from the heart. Gracias. And to get into the story at hand, well, like I mentioned today, I'm going to touch on a pili, a señor that's not really talked about a lot, right? And I stand speaking about certain individuals because they're not out there like that, nor do I want to be the first one to speak on them, right? Again, those ain't my intentions. But anyways, someone already spoke about them, so, again, I'm just sharing my personal experience. And it's just on the evolution on how things change amongst a pili from a camarada to a pili, right? But anyways, I want to talk about Cheito from Escondido. For a long time he had good clecha. He had that clecha to don't get involved in politics. It brings the Federicos towards your angle, and it's somewhat an attention, right? It hits the brakes on making feria. But anyways, allow me to make sense, right? For this, I'm gonna take you back right when I got to Ironwood, right, 99, and again, when I was there, you could say there was an individual that had the yard, but he didn't, as I said many times, right? You guys know when I took over, it was the first spot I had, but had someone in my ear to do things correctly, right? So I recalled everybody's paperwork to be double checked, and the whole cha-cha to make sure the yard was okay, right? And to be sincere on how many people locked it up right away. I didn't think I was gonna last in that yard, right? My first is the squad's gonna come and snatch me up for lifting dust, but it didn't happen, at least for a minute. And but on this yard, for those that were there around this time, should remember an older camarada, right? Chuco from Logan Heights. He was a short, stocky individual. He talked a good one, right? You could tell he had clecha to an extent, but he liked carrying that morena on his back, right? All the time. I'm talking about, again, he was like firme individuals. I remember we used to sit down in yard, and sometimes we had things to discuss, right, amongst bloqueros, and he had that respect to sit along, right? Because well, we knew he was in touch with the couple pilis, right, up in the Bahia. Amongst a couple of them was Silent, Güero, Robert, just to mention a couple. He was in touch with his pilis, I'll just leave it at that, right? And he was hitting on the yard. He was doing his thing. To be sincere, whatever he was hitting, the thing that came, the angle that came from my family, it's, I never did it, but it was good, right? But homeboy was bringing in something that would literally turn a Tecate to a Dolphin ASAP, right? It was just wanted, so, we worked it. We worked it to the point where he could get his for the Pilis, and, I could do what I was supposed to on the yard, right, for Terco. Nevertheless, he was placazo. What I mean by this, there was times we sat on the table and it was all got back, right, going and coming, and it was just someone in placa, right. I'm wanting attention. There was a few times I remember I had to tell him, like, hey, Chuco, go take a lap, homie. There was heat on the table, and you have Seal's eyes just turn around, and a search would jeopardize everyone on the table, right? And he would understand. I swear I never seen homeboy that wasn't high one day. But again, that's not looked down on. Many things are, but that ain't one. Cause he didn't have a debt in the yard. He didn't stay in the way of things getting done on the yard. And again, you ever sat down with him and conversate, you knew he'd been around, right? Nevertheless, a short while after I took over, there was a young camarada. Well, not young, right? My age or a little older. And everything cleared up. Chuku was part of that. You could say the San Diego Ranfla that did their little welcoming, right? Again, Ironwood was a set trip type of pinta, right? even though it shouldn't be. It was better kept that way, right? For politic reasons, if you guys get it. Anyways, paperwork checked out, bloquero, sent down the pipeline who he was, where he was from. He wasn't representing nobody at that time. It was this homeboy, right? Cheito B. And he was a cool artist. I'll just say that, right? That was his hustle when he got there. And for some reason, he liked Chuco, tough, and again, it was a Ramfla type of trip, and homie was doing his thing, right? Respectfully. I honestly think Chuco was the one that gave him the clecha or the avenues to say to touch base with Billy's, right? And I remember at this time, homie didn't have too much time. If I'm not mistaken, it was between 5 to 6 years, somewhere there, right? There was a lot of camaradas from San Diego here in Ironwood, because even though it's in Blythe, it's still closer to SD, right? But anyways, things always play out on the yard, especially if you're supporting an individual that's moving certain things on the yard, right? There's gonna bound to be somebody that's gonna sit on your stuff. It's just part of, right? That's why it's always wise. Not gonna say goons, cause that's disrespectful word, right? But there's good camaradas always on the yard that don't have nothing coming in, so you bring him in the fold, and hey, si algo pasa, you take care of business. Yo te respaldo, and I'll take care of your back, and you'll be taken care of. For example, I could hit 10 times, nothing happens in the times, but they're still getting broken off, right? It's part of extending the love, right, to camaradas. So they have a little canteen or whatever, right? Anyways, that's what Cheito was to Chuco, I guess. He didn't really last too long on this yard, right? We're talking about a month maybe. And, Abato, usually Chuco mess with nothing but homies from South LA and SD. He was known for, because he had his gente already, that he was able to let go of stuff. But then again, everybody spoke about his material like it was you guys get it, right? So at one point he messed with the homie from not Hammett, from Barstow, so I don't know, he was from IE, right? The homie Raton. And it had always happens, right? Me, honestly, I was a cool individual, but when it came to dope, especially dope that went up to the box, there's no tolerance, right? And you gotta always take into consideration is, I'm giving you this, you got 20 days. Then 20 days don't come, it's double, and you got another 20 days. Then 20 days don't come, I'm gonna come collect. And you can read between the lines, right? And anyways, homeboy's family fed up, or however you want to put it, right? Because just because people love you don't mean they don't get tired, right? I mean, they're barely putting a penny or $1 in their pocket, and they already have somebody on the phone telling them to send a mail out somewhere, right? And it gets old. Don't matter how much people love you, right? At the end of the day, it just gets old, man. I seen it time and time again where families just say, chales, ya estuvo. They know exactly what the feria is, but they want to protect their family member, that don't be getting high to not get hurt, so they take care of them as much as possible. But it comes to times where they just can't no more, and it's exactly what happened. And without hesitation, Cheito and homeboy Spooky from 36, yeah, Spooky from 36, they said they would take care of it, right? So we took the proper measures. We went around, let everybody know it was going to happen out of respect, and they took care of business, And they did it in front of the R&R, or that little window wherever they give those packets, whatever you call them, right? And they eventually got caught. They went to the hole, and for some reason, homeboy's name always kept popping up. Well, for at least another couple years, right? 2001, where I ended up going to Tehachapi. He was already there in the 180, right, on that yard, and he was doing his thing, right, for Billy's. So For those that done time know when usually you become good at analyzing somebody, right? From his behavior, or for being freshly from county and being around somebody that used dope so much as Shuko. He was respectful and he took in and he learned correctly, right? He wasn't influenced by the loquera, even though he didn't use, right, at this time at least. And he was gonna maintain. I'll just say it like that, right? He was holding the yard down. I remember the only conflict I heard was when Tito from La Habra got out there to a yard. It was basically Tito wanted the yard, right? And Chito said, "Chale." He stepped down because of, say, a mistake that always happens in prison, right? You see, there was another Cheito in Ironwood, meth troop. And that fool, it was a dope fiend. Eventually, he would end up leaving the yard owing a lot of people, right? You know how fucking wires, right, always happen. And basically, they told Cheito to sit down through the investigation and seen it through, right? He didn't have nothing to hide. Within time, I guess he got out, and what year was it? It was after 2010, right? I remember hearing his name again, but now I heard it for different reasons. That he was out there with Puff. I mean, #1 soldado, right? For Crazy, for his homeboy, supporting him to the fullest. And we're talking about everything, moving people to moving Ubers. I spoken on Crazy's reach, right? And I don't know. Would be speaking on my butt, right? The bottom line is, when he got caught with Crazy, right, supporting Crazy, he was one of the biggest pillars for Crazy. Somehow, some way, he was loved by la gente nueva in Chihuahua, el sur de Chihuahua. Those that don't know, at this time, they still belong to Sinaloa, and his name was heard a lot. I heard throughout the grapevine that it's because he used to go down there a lot for Crazy or whatever. However he did it, the one thing I'll tell you is people I personally knew in Mexico, they refer to Chito as Señor Chito, allá con los Federicos. For last time he was, anyways, he had that power in Mexico, and that's a hard one. How hard it is to have a faction in Mexico respect you to the point to call you a señor. Remember, we're hated, but he won him over, right? I really think is one of the big reasons why I was part of that crew. At an Adwater, Root went a little bit crazy and blessed, right? As you guys will hear, throughout his whole career, though, again, I heard nothing but good, right? No negative. He stayed away from politics. He allowed his brothers to do them, and he would, if his issue was to support, he would support. You never heard nothing like that, right? But you see, when you say power corrupt, that's 100% true. Power blinds. What I mean by this is, for those that are under awareness of recent, right? Not like yesterday recent, but recent. Chito's in a big power struggle right now with Crazy. He basically wants what he helped Crazy to get, And I understand why he's doing it, right? It's he lost whatever wiggle he had in Chihuahua with the gente nueva, with all the movement, right? Gente nueva wanted to go on their own and be trained like Guzmanes, right? And sides had to be chosen, and you can't do that from the feds, right? You're gonna be put in the back burner. It's just facts. And so he wants to stay relevant. So you start hearing him wanting that all what Crazy has. The thing is, Crazy stays relevant even if he's whatever he's at, As I said before, he has that direct pipeline to Jalisco, and that stays steady. But anyways, as this power struggle goes, I wanted to talk about Flaco, right? Flaco was a camarada dedicated to support. Ever since Cheito and Crazy were on the streets doing their thing, he was there. He just happened to miss the chingadazo, right? And remember, Cheito was a camarada, Crazy was a Billy. So of course Flaco decided to stay loyal to Crazy, right? Of course, Cheito would eventually become a Billy, start pushing for that. But it's just never enough what a camarada has to offer when it comes to power. When a pili feels minimized by a camarada, by the camarada trying to do the correct thing. What I mean by this is when Flaco's being requested by Cheito to do things, Flaco's Simon, but he's not pulling away from crazy. He's letting be known who soldado he is, right? Because again, he's one of them individuals loyal to one pili. And it's like hitting Cheito in the ego, right? And it comes a time where it's a real known thing, right? For those that don't know, for a pili to wash out people. What I mean by this is when a pili has so much influence with people moving the material from Mexico, right, into the States, it's easy for a pili to say, hey, güey, anótale afuera que son 9 y nomás mete 7. Tú nomás hazlo así, nosotros ya sabemos que es show, right? Yo todos te voy a pagar completo. They tell him to write 9 down when there's only 7 in the package. So, to put it in words, Flaco receives it. Don't touch it, don't open it. As he gets it, he turns it into where Cheito B tells him. All of a sudden, it's short to where they at. And for those that don't know, the offer came. I'll take care of that. But it came from the wrong person, right? Cheito said, no, he dipped into my stuff. I can't have a camarada be dipping into my stuff. And that Flaco moved on. You see, those are the type of games that the pili plays once a camarada that's solid, not just with him but with another pili, is the games they play to move on camaradas and get him out the way because they feel disrespected, when in reality they're doing what they're supposed to. You see, it was never a problem up until a point where all of a sudden Cheito be slammed and he wants as much as possible, right? Greed comes into effect. You see how the evolution from a good-minded camarada, firme, level-headed, never politicking, never argues about money, dope, turns into that tecato mentality. I don't know if Cheito uses, but his mentality is exactly that, right? He knows the avenue to wash up a camarada quick to hurt another pili. Or you tell me, what mentality would you call that? And it's all a game. But again, it's a small glimpse for those that are not there yet on how being a camarada, and I'm speaking to you about from a camarada's perspective, right? You always have to be on your toes. Always. They're gonna tell you to do something and it could have a backslash towards your career. Those are the games you're playing when someone's mentality is yo soy el más chingón y tú vales, because that's what they think about camaradas. So again, I'll say it, be smart. Don't take my story, my walk, my knowledge, whatever. Be smart, period, point blank. Take what's out there to make a decision. If you do something, get caught up in between, just boot up, suit up, and best of luck, right? Never give up, never go sideways. But if you have time to reach that level to represent your hood, come a time to where it's gonna be about me and my family now, then take it. There ain't nothing there. You see, an individual can start real good, but to maintain, the object of the game is use and abuse camaradas, stamp on them to maintain fear and keep power. Don't chance it. Stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones. Buenas noches.